Tonight, on Everything on the Table, episode 22, Nikki Stees and I will be discussing about the NFL Hall of Fame, NBA opening week schedule release, Don Nelson tribute, and other athletes and celebrity passing this week. Plus, we're going to be discussing my predictions for Anime NYC this week. More on Everything on the Table. It's Nikki Stees, Agent Warrior X. Next.
To get there, he took the Orlando Magic from a dumpster fire to a respectable team in the East. He was there for the ride with Boston. He actually helped keep the Clippers' Bronco morale up and kept the chemistry going when the Donald Sterling situation happened.
Well, this was by far the best quarterback draft class they had with Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and potentially Bo Nix. In my opinion, Bo Nix was a really good pick. Drake May was a great pick, and of course, Caleb Williams is also another great pick too. And I think Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2, the best games I've ever played as a kid.
Like it, but then those rock fans that aren't necessarily fans of artists from a different genre going in. The best solution would be just have a Hall of Fame for hip hop, have a Hall of Fame for rock, bam, opportunity for names throughout the industry to get inducted, such as Nas, Wu-Tang, 50. You can put them all the big names in, and then the same goes with the Rock Hall of Fame. You still got your Nirvanas, of course. Pretty much your big four grunge, easy get in if you separate them.
Even Green Day should definitely be inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, or they was inducted. But Green Day, Nirvana, even I think Marilyn Manson should get in there as well.
Good evening, folks. After a 2-week hiatus from the show, we're back on schedule on Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My co-host, Agent Warrior X, we're back for episode 22. As a duo, we have a lot of catching up to do on some of the news around the world. Can you believe next week will be the last episode of August?
I could believe so, because the following week we have the doubleheader for the Red Sox and the Yankees. Speaking of the Yankees, I got the Yankee game versus the Orioles, and as Pete Alonso hits a base hit to left field. To tell you the truth, there has been a lot of things going on around the world. And I know preseason just started, and to be honest, and preseason started, we have the schedule release for the NBA. And I think, in my opinion, this is a good matchup to start the 2026-27 season. The Knicks versus the Philadelphia 76ers, but the difference is they have LeBron, you have Joel Embiid, you have Tyrese Maxey, and Jaylen Brown. The only thing that I would say, however, is Jaylen Brown should definitely, this is my way too early predictions. This is my early predictions for the Sixers. The Sixers will go back to the playoffs, but as long as they stay healthy, they have a shot to have the number 2 or number 1 seed for the first time since 2021, when the Brooklyn Nets was the number 2 seed back then.
And for excellent move by the NBA to start off with the Knicks and Sixers. Opening night, you got the New York Knicks, the defending champions, at Madison Square Garden. You know it's already going to draw a big intrigue alone. Now, on top of it, you got the 76ers, the most discussed team through the summer, with the most hype entering the season out of the teams that made a bunch of moves. So why not start that off? You got a lot of big stars in that game. That'll definitely be a big ratings boom, and it'll start the season off on a high note. Great move by the NBA. Take advantage of the opportunity to start off with a hot game while you have the chance to. Oh, and opening night, too, out west. Rematch from the conference finals, Spurs and Thunder. Give the fans a little bit of a taste at right where it left off after their 7-game battle last year. Great start.
I'm going to say last year for the Oklahoma City Thunder, granted, if that OKC was healthy, they would have just beat the Knicks regardless. If they were healthy, they would have beat the Knicks. But because San Antonio beat them in 7 games, which I highly give credit to both teams and for that massive Western Conference Finals they had last year, I think if Wenbayama and the other players such as Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, and of course, Dylan Harper, I could possibly see this as another playoff rematch for next season. But for the schedule releases, I know a lot of people have been saying that the Nets, the Clippers, right? The Nets, Clippers. I don't think the Celtics had a really good schedule release, but in my opinion, the Nets has one of the few best schedule releases. It's basically Diego Demon and Mikael Brown Jr. Both rookie, both in one in his sophomore year, one in his rookie year. One from Louisville, one from BYU. Now I'm going to be honest with you and say that the schedule release was the funnest one has to be the Brooklyn Nets. A good one I could say is the Los Angeles Clippers. But I still don't understand why the Clippers even bothered trading up Kawhi Leonard to the Raptors. Rumor has it that Kyrie Irving could end up on the Raptors. If he does end up in the Raptors, the entire East could look very different. The Western Conference is better off. All right. Better off without LeBron, and better off without Kevin Durant too. It started with promise. It ends with death. The Eastern Conference will definitely do something to your grave like they always do.
And when it comes to the NBA schedule, I also saw the Christmas Day schedule. I like this year's slate of games potentially better than last year, because you got the Spurs and Knicks NBA Finals rematch at MSG. That's going to be intriguing. Lakers Sixers, that LeBron travels back to the Lakers. That's going to be interesting to see how the Lakers fan base, how hard they boo them. And it'll be interesting to see who plays. Beyond that, you have Thunder and T-Wolves, which is going to be a good matchup too. Or it's Nuggets T-Wolves. That's a good matchup too. And then I think you got Warriors closing it out the night against the Nuggets. Warriors, at this point, you still got Steph Curry, but the excitement factor from a personal standpoint isn't as high. And I did see the international games too. You got the France and England games in a 3-night stretch. It's going to be 2 back-to-back Spurs versus Pelicans. I get it. You're going to do for the Paris game. You want Wemby, who's from France, there to sell tickets. Fair enough. The Mexico City game, it's a little interesting if they do an NBA game in Mexico City. You know what I thought they should have done? Here was a big missed opportunity. Some point, middle of the season, do a one-off in Vancouver. Easy. Have the Grizzlies as the home team, quote-unquote, and put them against the OKC Thunder. Why OKC? Because SGA is from Canada and the biggest star out of the current players in Canada. So if you want to sell tickets for one night in Vancouver, that's the perfect way to do it.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, there's only one thing that's standing in their way, though, in terms of NBA Christmas games. The NFL Christmas games. Packers, Bears, Bills, Broncos, Rams, and Seahawks. Oh, yeah, don't forget, your Eagles are playing on Christmas Eve. So I will not forget about that. And to be honest with you, this Christmas is going to be really special. And I'm glad Christmas Day is on a Friday. Friday is personally my favorite day of the week. And I know Halloween is on Saturday. We have a lot of holidays happening this year in terms of weekend-wise. But the next topic I want to talk about is the passing recently. The first one I want to mention this year, so far this week, is Tommy John. Now, I know a lot of people, knows Tommy John for one good reason. His surgery name. The surgery named after him. He's called the Bionic Arm, played for the New York Yankees for one good reason. That's why. And now he passed away at the age of 83. He's actually quite one of the few Yankee players that everyone either grew up watching or became a fan favorite of him. The next The next celebrity I want to talk about is the very recent one. I forgot her name. It starts with
Let's see. You remember Hayden
yeah,
Patier or
yep,
something like that? Yep.
Hayden
She
Patry.
remember.
Yep, Hayden Patry was the same voice actress who played. If you remember, who played as Kyrie from the Kingdom Hearts games. If y'all remember the Kingdom Hearts games, you grew up playing as Sora with her with his sister. I know. Kingdom Hearts is basically Final Fantasy mixed with Disney characters. And don't get me wrong, she's known for Rise of the Titans. Don't forget that movie. She was also part of that movie too, Rise of the Titans. And also the a Bug's Life character. I forgot which character she played as from the Bug's Life, because I know Pixar was an up and coming and CGI animated studio in the late 90s. And the final one I'm gonna say is done is the Knicks passing. That's when I want to say the Knicks passing.
Yeah, man, that's actually it's an amazing story. It's actually pretty sad and crazy how it happened. Shortly after her first child was born, she was diagnosed with postpartum depression, and that played a key role in her later life. She didn't really talk about it openly, but it got to the point where she had to where she couldn't really function. She had to leave her kids with her baby daddy, aka Vladimir Klitschko, because of it. And now I didn't see the official, but there's belief it may have either been a drug overdose or a suicide as a result.
Potentially, it was bad. Tommy John was 83 years old. The 10-second moment of silence will begin shortly after my sentence. Tommy John was 83 years old. Don Nelson was 86 years old. And Hayden and Hayden Pantry was 36 years old. Thank you. The next topic I want to talk about is the Hall of Fame, is NFL Hall of Famers. Now, this, in my opinion, for the Hall of Fames, they got it right. Drew Brees. Drew Brees has finally got into the Hall of Fame. Now I know. I think the Dolphins made the biggest mistake of their franchise by letting Drew Brees sign with the New Orleans Saints instead of letting Peyton Manning go to the Colts. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. In that '09 season with Peyton Manning and not Peyton Manning, with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, that was by far one of the best coaching quarterback duos we've seen since Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I could also say Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning, Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb, and of course, the very recent one I could say is I could also say Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, but I'm going to be honest with you, say Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts.
Oh, yeah. And Drew Brees, man. And I said, incredible career. He started off he was the first pick of the second round, the 2001 draft. They picked LaDainian Tomlinson fourth, being the Chargers, and he got to play with them. And Brees, to his credit, he gave all the people from his upbringing, his pastors, his high school coaches, Purdue coaches, and even the people in San Diego. Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, who even said himself he wishes he had more time playing with, Marty Schottenheimer, who another one of those great coaches. Unfortunately, he had a lot of rotten luck that was out of his control in playoff situations throughout his coaching career, but that's for another time. And then Brees even gave his neighbors in New Orleans a shout out for introducing them, basically bringing some Cajun New Orleans style food delivered to their doorstep to kind of make them familiar with the area. And then, of course, he acknowledged two moments Saints fans remember most. Steve Gleason blocked punt. Super Bowl 44 gave Sean Payton, everyone a shout out, his family as well, for always being supporting. And it was a great speech that at least he took the time to acknowledge everyone that was involved. That
Exactly. After that Super Bowl win with the New Orleans Saints, not only they didn't win this for the city of New Orleans, but with a heavy heart, they actually did it for the victims of Hurricane Katrina back in '04.
Yeah, I mean, because he came to the Saints right that first offseason they were rebuilding when he signed with them. And he's one of his early things he did was he got to work helping the community rebuild, volunteering to help. And he built a great respect amongst the people in New Orleans for it. And easily the greatest quarterback in New Orleans Saints franchise history, and it's not even close. You've had a few solid, with all due respect, guys like Archie Manning, even Aaron Brooks, who was solid, but Drew Brees by a mile was the best QB they had.
Exactly. Correction. Hurricane Katrina, they did it when Hurricane Katrina happened in 2005, not 2004. Correction.
Yeah, that I remember that. Yep. One of the biggest turnarounds, too. And you also had Larry Fitzgerald, considered one generational talent at wide receiver. He had excellent career. He started off at Pitt. He was on the cover of NCAA Football 05. Early on in his career, he made some spectacular catches for the Cardinals, but they didn't reflect on their team record until 2008. The infamous playoff run where Larry Fitzgerald, with all due respect to Kurt Warner, he was the main reason they made it to the Super Bowl 43. And that's considered one of the greatest individual playoff runs in a single playoff season in NFL history. Larry Fitzgerald, 2008. And then 2009, he was part of that infamous shootout with the Packers. And then 2015, he did it again, scoring the game winner in overtime. It's just a shame that he didn't get more opportunities to play in the playoffs because he was exciting when the Cardinals made it. But Fitzgerald had an incredible career, and he brought one great thing in his speech. Surround yourself with people that tell you what you need to hear tomorrow, not what you want to hear today.
Exactly. In fact, that was actually one of the few motivational speeches that Larry Fitzgerald did. In fact, Larry Fitzgerald will go down as one of the few greatest players. Good, nice base hit from Central Jones. Larry Fitzgerald will go down as one of the few greatest athletes that never won a championship. Now, if you want to talk about top 10 or top 5 greatest players that never won a Super Bowl, World Series, NBA Finals, I'm going to give you a couple. Matt Ryan, number 1, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan surpassed Dan Marino's record for most touchdowns in playoffs history. Number 2, Ken Griffey Jr., Seattle Mariners' greatest franchise player since Ken Griffey Sr. Number 3, the third player I'm going to say is so far, as far as I'm concerned, for greatest players that never won a championship so far, and this is current, Aaron Judge. From 2017 till now, Aaron Judge has been playing a lot with all his heart, but he went to the World Series at one point 2 years ago, but he was one of the few greatest players that never won a championship so far in his career. Number 4, another great player that never won a championship is Donovan McNabb. Donovan McNabb never won a championship, but he's one of the few greatest Eagles players that never won a championship. Number 5, Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens was considered as one of the few greatest wide receivers that never won a championship. Number 6, I could also say another great player that never won a championship is... No, Pedro Martinez won a championship. Roger Clemens won a championship. Another great player that I liked watching was Hendrik Lundqvist. Lundqvist never won a championship. Hendrik Lundqvist was one of the few greatest goalies since that 2005 lockout with the New York Rangers. But ultimately, the Rangers went to the finals with Hendrik Lundqvist. But ultimately, he was one of the few great players that ever won a championship. And that's pretty much it for my top 6 that never won a championship.
I'm going to create my own list, with the twist being is new names on the list. I'll start with the greatest quarterback to never win a championship, Dan Marino from the Miami Dolphins. He was on, you could just look at his numbers. He was playing ahead of his time. It's just a shame that, Jimmy Johnson did arrive and they started to move forward. But unfortunately, I think if Jimmy Johnson would have went to Miami a few years earlier in an alternate timeline, Shula steps down earlier, Jimmy goes to Miami, they possibly have a shot at winning a Super Bowl or two there. But by the time Jimmy got there, it was maybe just a few years too late for a Super Bowl push. But Marino truly was one of those guys. And while we're talking about football, let's talk about one of the greatest running backs of all time that dominated and has highlight reel plays that still stand out to this day. Barry Sanders himself. Incredible. Some people argue that individually he was better than Emmitt Smith. Some even think they switch roles. Barry breaks every single record in the NFL history by a running back. That will only see some other guys, a guy recent era, Joe Thornton. Most famously, the San Jose Sharks with his infamous beard. He played a long career, him and Jerome McGinley, but they never won them cups. I think they both respectively got to a Stanley Cup each, but fell short. I know McGinley in 2004 with the Flames, but they lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. There was that. And Thornton, I think, made it one time, but he fell short. Of course, some other ones, Patrick Ewing from the New York Knicks. Incredible player. It's a surreal surprise that he never won a chip. I mean,
It's an honorable mention. Iverson. Iverson was one of the few greatest players I grew up watching as a kid, but never won a championship.
You got that. I mean, we got those guys right there. I was thinking some other guys, if you're talking strictly from an on-the-court standpoint, Karl Malone from strictly on-the-court standpoint. Because actually him and John Stockton would be the greatest duo that never won an NBA championship, I would say. And then Charles Barkley is another name.
Charles Barkley never won a championship. And that's a base hit from George Lombard Jr. I'm going to be honest with you and say George Lombard Jr. has been on a tear for the Yankees. Ever since after the deadline, George Lombard Jr. was called up. He played shortstop, and he immediately made an impact on defense. The offense, he said he's struggling a bit, but fortunately, he's playing better defense than Anthony Volpe. And I honestly feel bad for that kid, too. He has a lot of talent, but ever since his injuries came in and he didn't perform well, I think the Yankees, in my opinion, maliciously ruined a power-hungry Anthony Volpe. And I think a lot of people say he was the next Jeter, but he's not. Jason Dominguez pretty much deserved better. But ultimately, George Lombard Jr. has been playing a lot better. And speaking of the Yankees, I feel like the Yankees are the 49ers of baseball this year. We have too many injuries. Judge, Stanton. Stanton can't stay healthy. I'm sorry, but he can't. Max Fried recently. What else? Who else got hurt? Oh, yeah. Another player that got hurt was not too long ago, Cody Bellinger. Cody Bellinger also got hurt too. I feel like outside of the starting four lineup, the Yankees haven't played mediocre ever since all these four players I mentioned were out on the IL. And I'm starting to feel like we're more like the 49ers this year of the MLB because of these crucial injuries we had.
Yeah, when it comes to baseball, it has been an interesting race in the NL. Last week, Phillies were in as the season ended that day. Then on Sunday, the Padres were over the Phillies, 6-7. Now, Phillies are slightly ahead of the Padres. So that's going to be a tight race in their NL for the wild card spot. And the Phillies got to make sure they win that because realistically, getting the division over the Braves seems like a long shot, a super long shot. So wild card's a more realistic possibility at this point. And now they're losing 3-1 to the Marlins at the top of the sixth.
That's my thing about
not looking good at the moment. You're muted.
That's the thing. I don't understand why most Phillies fans hate the Mets, but when it comes to the Yankees, when you're facing the Yankees, you can't even beat us. Heck, even Cam Schlittler outlasted your offense. Before Luis Arias came, when Luis Arias came before he was part of the starting lineup, that offense was garbage. First off, to tell you the truth, that Phillies and Yankees game shouldn't even been this close. That offense looked awful, and that third game was winnable. Don't get me wrong, but considering how we took the series against a future Cy Young like Cam Schlittler and Garrett Cole, good luck facing that rotation when they're completely healthy.
Yeah, man. I don't know about the Phillies. I mean, they might get the wild card spot, but even if they do, their championship window's closed. I don't see this team making a World Series run. They're not consistent enough, and they haven't built enough momentum to actually make a true run. To me, if they do make it as the 6th seed, okay, congratulations, you made the playoffs, but I don't see them getting further than that.
Agreed. And I think the worst case scenario last year for Philly, especially what happened with the Eagles losing that game against the Giants, and the Sixers and the Flyers lost the same night. I think the worst case scenario to end the season was Game 4 of the National League Divisional Round. Orion Kerkering cost y'all the game in extra innings. And he could have thrown that first instead of just home. What was he thinking?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, it's Phillies baseball in a nutshell for you. You get small windows of opportunity to capitalize and win something. They did it in 1980. Well, did so in 2008. Outside of that, they've had their runs to the World Series. But usually they also follow with their stretches of mediocrity or bad in between. From 2012 to about 2021, it was just a run of mediocrity for the Phillies until they just caught fire in 2022. Something similar throughout the late 90s and the early to mid 2000s. They were relatively mediocre at best and then just got hot around 2007. They finally made the playoffs. And then 2008, everything just clicked.
And then the very next year, after y'all beat the Rays back, Devil Rays back in 08, we beat y'all in the new stadium when Hideki Matsui, A-Rod, Jorge Posada, etc. Oh yeah, don't forget about Johnny David, Nick Swisher, and Mark Teixeira. That was also a really good series too. It lasted 6 games because I know Pedro Martinez was part of your team back then. And I know for a fact that before you had Bryce Harper, you had Ryan Howard, who I met at Fanatics Fest. You had Ryan Howard.
Jimmy Rollins,
Jimmy
Utley.
Rollins, Chase Utley. Don't get me wrong, Chase Utley's a really good player. He also played for the Yankees too.
Oh, yeah, and a real gem too during that era.
So the thing is this. When it comes to Philly, New York rivalries, I'm going to put it perspective-wise, say Knicks, Sixers, Giants, Eagles, Mets, Phillies, Rangers, Flyers, specifically the Broad Street Bullies era.
Oh, yeah, in particular, yeah, those New York Philly games, the chants, Hexel, asshole chants during the Flyer Rangers games, really drew a big spark with that rivalry. And they even HBO Sports made a documentary about the Broad Street Bullies, even of the 70s.
Exactly. And to be honest, now if you want to talk about Anime NYC this weekend, I'm going to be honest with you and say Anime NYC this weekend is going to be really good. We have a lot of things happening at Anime NYC.
There's
this
one
weekend.
thing I wanted to bring up. Shout out to Joshua Baez of the Cardinals for that phenomenal historic debut. 3 back-to-back homers in his first game up to bat.
Ooh, that was crazy. Joshua Baez against the division rival Cubs. That was by far one of the greatest debuts I've ever seen since Aaron Judge hits a homer in the big leagues back in 2016. Now
And he
for
got a
anime
standing
and
ovation.
exactly, and and as for the anime NYC, there's a lot of things I have in mind when it comes to these. I have the I have meet and greets to do. I have some parties to go to. I'm gonna have a really good time at Anime NYC this weekend. Now I know in the beginning of everything on the table, from 1 through like 15, there was a VTuber that I did a meet and greet with this year, that did last year, and her name was Mayfei. She is a streamer who currently she's streaming right now on her YouTube channel, but I cannot wait to meet her again this year. And Angus are collaborating with another VTuber network, and we're doing 2 for 1. It's a one network VTuber and the same VTuber network that they're doing this year. And I know for the actors and actresses, my childhood has called me once again. Maybe Flanagan, voice actress who played as Naruto. Speaking of Naruto, we're having Naruto night at Yankee Stadium next month. Stephanie Shea, the voice actress who played as Sailor Moon, Hinata, and Arumi from Bleach. That's gonna be amazing. And Brian Holt, the voice actor who played as Kirito from Sword Online, and of course Inosuke from Demon Slayer. And in my perspective, I'm going to tell you how my experience was before the NFL season starts. Now I know I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do like a special intro for this show because I feel like I am blessed to have an honor to have a VTuber or a content creator or a cosplayer to have an introduction for our show. So once Anime NYC happens, oh my God, Christian Bits a base into left field, to center field. That's gonna clear the bases. Or not, it's 3-1 Yanks. Let's go, Christian. He came through once again. Oh my goodness. I don't know what's going on. We're caught up in the action here. But yeah, that's my predictions for Anime NYC. And next up is Ben Rice. Grisham comes through again.
But looks like I guess you're still watching the game. But whenever, yeah, definitely let me know whenever you have the opportunity.
It's 3-1 Yanks, but go ahead.
Yep, when you get the opportunity, when the opportunity rises to tweak the intro, definitely let me know and we'll work on it. And we'll definitely have something for you guys in the near future.
But it's a special intro though before Nikki or I do an introduction speech before the show starts.
Yep, and I do gotta say about Don Nelson, I gotta give him credit for one thing that he doesn't always get credit for. His last run as a coach with the Golden State Warriors, you had first the underdog series win as an 8 seed over the Mavs, but even though after that they didn't make the playoffs again, he was the one who believed in Steph Curry and brought him to Golden State and had a huge influence in it. So he definitely gets credit for that because even though he was retired as a coach when they started to win and became a dynasty, his influence played a huge role in Steph Curry, the main player of the Warriors dynasty, even being there in the first place.
Hit by pitch. Ben Rice has been hit by pitch and the bases load again, but go ahead.
But yeah, credit to Don Nelson there. He also, was part of those Celtics teams in the 80s as well, played a key role in their championship runs with Larry Bird, part of that Bird-Johnson rivalry. And he was a former player too. He actually played for both the Lakers and Celtics, won a championship with both, more as a role player, but hey, still one of the more respectable basketball coaches of all time, alongside guys such as, of course, Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, Greg Popovich, Phil Jackson, Jerry Sloan, one of the greatest coaches to ever win a championship with the Jazz, who kept that team relevant and in the playoff mix well past Malone and Stockton's expiration date. You had Andre Kirkellini, AK-47, one of the underrated players of the 2000s. And even in the late 2000s, they still made the playoffs as a lower seed a few times with Boozer, Kirkellini, and company.
Yep. And to be honest with you, the next thing I want to talk about is SummerSlam. Last 2 weeks. SummerSlam either night 1 or night 2 was amazing. You had the first matchup I want to talk about is Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar. That was by far one of the craziest Hell in a Cell matches since Drew McIntyre or CM Punk. Now I know a lot of people were hyped about see who the future really was, which last night recently on Monday Night Raw, Braun Breaker will face Oba Femi on Sunday night's main event in Atlanta. And don't forget, Braun Breaker's from Atlanta. So I'm going to be honest with you and say that Oba Femi should definitely win the World Heavyweight Championship in his future or the Universal Championship in his career. But ultimately, I'm going to be honest with you and say that Hell in a Cell match was crazy. And Brock Lesnar now officially retired. The second matchup I'm going to say is Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns. That was by far one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. Classic SummerSlam main event. You can argue it say Jeff Hardy and CM Punk. You could argue it say Edge versus Undertaker. You could say, Stone Cold what in the late 90s, or better yet, Bret Hart, Ultimate Warrior. You could say every single wrestler who was part of that main event at SummerSlam, and they would deliver the greatest show of the summer. Now I know a lot of people, including myself, are looking forward to one of the few most anticipated matches, or better yet, one of the most anticipated games, movies, games, movies, the season itself. But the best way to describe SummerSlam was peak at night 2. The way how it ended with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins was peak. Now, for the most anticipated movies and games for the upcoming months, we have Wolverine, the game Wolverine, coming out next month. We have GTA 6. Now, a lot of people, including myself, are very much hyped about the game itself. But I'm pretty much confused on why people are leaking it on the internet just to see what it actually looks like. I completely understand that, but don't spoil it. Just let Rockstar and the others do what they need to do. I completely understand the PlayStation and Rockstar situation with the with the disc free, because I know they announced disc free after the cover art, but very little after the cover art was revealed. Now, the strangest thing, in my opinion, was having GTA 6 special look on Netflix. Why have it on Netflix when you could just show it on YouTube? But nevertheless, come November and this holiday season, it's going to look so great. We have the NFL season. We have the NBA season. We have Avengers Doomsday. Now, I know a lot of people's looking forward to see Avengers Doomsday, Nikki. We're going to save that for another time. For another time, we talk about Avengers Doomsday to see what our final thoughts are, or why Avengers Doomsday is great. But we're going to talk about that another time, if or when this show is going to be rescheduled once the NFL season starts. And that's all I got to say for so far.
And there was one thing I wanted to say. Heroes of SummerSlam, dividing into 2 parts. First part would be about the first half, say the inaugural till about 2008, second half about 2009 to present. First wave of Heroes of SummerSlam: Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Undertaker, and then say Triple H. Then the second wave of heroes would be guys Brock Lesnar, John Cena, CM Punk, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins,
Rey Mysterio.
That's kind of, I'm trying to think, like 2009. he wrestled Ziggler, 2010 Kane, 2011 Six-Man, 2012. And then there's kind of like the midpoint of guys who started at the midpoint, like the Cena's, Orton's, Edge, the hero of SummerSlam in that regard. Jericho, who had the infamous segment with Shawn Michaels at SummerSlam 08. Shout out to the feud of the year there. HBK Jericho. But definitely guys like Reigns, Rollins, Punk easily stand out as some of the recent heroes. And Lesnar, of course.
Don't forget, Nikki. Remember earlier I talked about Avengers Doomsday? I know a lot of people are saying that Avengers Doomsday was considered the most anticipated movie of this year. I haven't seen Spider-Man Brand New Day yet, but I will see it probably like in the future when it comes on Disney Plus or so see it in theaters. Now for Avengers Doomsday, I know a lot of people are wondering, why is Robert Downey Jr. playing as Dr. Doom instead of Iron Man? I know I talked to Dad about this recently and not too long ago, and he said it's Tony Stark, but it's not. That's actually Victor Von Doom. It's not. You could say it's a variant of Tony Stark, but that was a literal theory you thought about because the fact that you thought that Tony Stark is a variant of Doctor Doom, but no, Doctor Doom is Victor Von Doom is Doctor Doom, born and raised in a European country called Latveria. From Fantastic Four to X-Men to eventually at one point the Avengers in the comics. And eventually in the comics, they had this own comic called The Secret Wars, Avengers Secret Wars, which releases next year. Now, my thing is this, Nikki. Is this cast, my question to you is this Avengers Doomsday cast stacked or not stacked? Because recently Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds announced at D23 saying that there will be an Avengers Doomsday alongside Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, that's a loaded cast right there of names, guys from the previous Marvels who previously who have had big name roles in the Marvel franchise and Marvel period all come together. There's certainly going to be a lot of hype and intrigue into it. But now the question is, will it live up to the hype? Because we see in all walks of life, you can have all the stars you want to. And we've seen about some examples where it works out great. But then other examples where it just didn't live up to the hype.
And to be honest, I think Avengers Doomsday is going to live up to a hype because there's one movie competing with it, Doom Part 3. Now, this holiday season is going to be real special. And I'm going to be honest with you, Nikki, and say that Avengers Doomsday will outlast Doom Part 3, box office-wise. Now, for next month, we have Endgame Encore. We have Avengers Endgame Encore, which is a celebration of the Avengers Endgame from 2019. Now I know Avengers Infinity War was great, but Endgame was the best way to end the Infinity Saga. Now for Multiverse Saga wise, I've heard the Russo brothers added some new scenes that could lead to Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, but we got a lot going on the schedule. Yeah, a lot going on the schedule. And right now I'm looking on MLB.com just like Pirates up over the Tigers. Cardinals up 3-0.
You're up 4-3.
Yep, exactly. Got the nice turnaround there. Red Sox are up over the Diamondbacks. Padres are beating the Mets, which is another reason why this is must win for the Phillies because they're only one game ahead of the Padres, and that's a tight race for the final wild card spot.
And they need the Mets to win.
Yeah. The Mets.
And
a division rival and a dumpster fire to help you out?
Probably. Hopefully you don't blow this lead this time.
And you can't always rely on teams that are going to the Tank Bowl and a division rival to help you when you need help. That doesn't always seem to work out.
Except the only difference is that the Red Sox forgot how to tank. Instead of just selling, they immediately bought out, but have a massive catching problem. They blatantly just paid the big bucks to a they blatantly traded the big bucks to a former catcher, to a former top five pick, number one pick for the Baltimore Orioles. And I think, in my opinion, the Red Sox paid way too much for that.
Like, is Michael Jordan running the Red Sox? Because this seems like something he would have done when he was running the Hornets.
No, it's not. It's not running. Michael Jordan's not running the Red Sox. If you want to talk about Red Sox ownership, it's John Henry, the same guy that runs Liverpool FC alongside LeBron James. He owns Liverpool FC and the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, but this just it's comedy right there. And yeah, like I said, you're not going to really expect that to work yet. And the Brewers are up 1-0 over the Mariners. And it's crazy the Brewers are actually ahead of the Dodgers as of right now in the NL standings. But we know based off recent history, the Dodgers, yeah, you can't trust, you don't just trust the standings yet. Let's wait and see what happens come playoff time. And based off recent history, we give the Dodgers all the benefit of the doubt come playoff time.
Oh, boy. I think, in my opinion, the Dodgers are pretty much favorites at this point since they got Derek Skubal. This could immediately lead to a lockout, though, because if the CBA and MLB doesn't come to an agreement by December, we could potentially have less games, and worst case scenario, RSN deals, revenues for each teams, such as the Padres, Marlins, Rays, Rockies, Twins, flipping the Guardians. The Guardians could also face revenue struggles. But most of the time, the Twins, Astros, Pirates, Padres, and the Rockies could also face inflation, RSN inflation deals.
Yeah, I remember we had the whole deal in 2022, I believe it was. They were able to reach a temporary deal, but coming to an end, now you're going to have to figure out something for the long term, and the odds aren't looking too great right now, so we'll have to see. MLB is going to have to get something going.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, that's my concern about this year's lockout, because the lockout could really face up to serious consequences for other players, teams, etc. But in my perspective, when it comes to this lockout, the lockout could definitely put the season at jeopardy if they don't come to an agreement by December.
Yes.
Now remember,
and ask
we already
the NHL
know
what happens.
Look at the NFL, look at the NBA, look at the NHL, look at the NFL, look at the NBA. All these leagues, respective leagues we all mentioned, have salary caps or limit. Now, the MLB wants to propose a salary cap, but the players said no. Players denied it. The players denied it. The CBA denies it. And ultimately, now it threatens to cancel the entire season next year. Now, this could really destroy the momentum of it. What is going on? What is going on?
Yeah, and you got to remember, too, the NHL,
no. What's going on?
0405.
Why is Brent Hendrick being subbed off? Why are you putting in Fernando Cruz in? Why is Fernando Cruz coming in, Boone? I swear, if Fernando Cruz does end up giving up a run, I don't know what to say. Just let Brent Hendrick finish. I understand he was over 25 pitches, but let him finish.
Yeah, and if you don't think that a lockout could end a season, ask the NHL. Remember 0405? Right after Tampa Bay Lightning won the Stanley Cup, Ovechkin got drafted in the Capitals. There was no follow-up season.
Exactly, because that was the same time that the Rangers got Henrik Lundqvist after Richter was in his last legs.
Yeah, so MLB, I mean, it sounds crazy to think that the MLB, that was one of the top sports in the, if not the top sport of the 20th century in North America, could now be possibly facing a lockout with no season or a shortened season, kind of similar to the NBA in 2011, 2012. It's possible.
Rumor has it that the MLS could also do the same thing. Instead of just going it from March, right? Instead of just going it from March, they're going it from October all the way to May. You know how the Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, and Serie A, and the Champions League also did the same thing worldwide? In Europe, in Europe, that's pretty much it. In European sports, they started the season from August all the way to May. Same with the Champions League. The Champions League most of the time starts out around October or November. This is where things gets really interesting. Come the Champions League with PSG defending their title for the second consecutive year. Now for the newcomers, Manchester United. Manchester United are the newcomers. We already know Arsenal won the Premier League. We know Liverpool is already in. We already know Manchester City is slowly declining. And for La Liga, we already know Barca's in. We already know Real Madrid is in. We already know Atletico is in. But for Serie A, it could be either a Farmers League or something else. Besides Inter Milan, AC Milan, Juventus, Roma, etc.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that they're going to have to work on, man. And I'll say this, speaking of last things that got to be worked on, couple things. Number one, the Giants' offensive line. Did you see that hit?
I was on Tyrell Tracy, but Jackson Dart could have got a concussion protocol. Worst case scenario, he could have been out for like a few weeks. But this is my part where I don't understand when it comes to offensive linemen. Why would you even bother getting Daniel Fahalele in the first place when you're already projected to be a potential wildcard team? You seriously want to mess that up? Speaking of the Giants, I heard they signed Najee Harris. Now,
Yeah,
would this be an interesting duo? Would it be an interesting trio of Tyrell Tracy, Cam Scottaboo, and Najee Harris? I feel like, and plus Patrick McCarr is doing a really good job blocking the run game. But would it be amazing? Would it be amazing if the Giants kept Odell Beckham Jr. for the year and potentially give him more playing time? Because I know we have our wide receiving core is pretty much full at this point. We have Neighbors, Darnell Mooney, we have Darius Slayton, and of course Odell Beckham Jr.
I give them credit for at least loading the wide receiver room, trying to help their quarterback succeed. The Eagles, because the Eagles didn't play their starters, it's not really much I can say. Really. And now, what is funny, though, is the Browns QB room, which has been comedy gold since 1999 and counting. I wonder if the tape on that Tim Couch jersey has finally reached the front of the jersey by now. You know the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. Having Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, Gillard Gabriel. I feel like this QB room they formed was by far either the most comedy or something else. Either way, this has to be something else in terms of when it comes to Cleveland teams. Now, I don't understand why the Browns even drafted Shedeur Sanders. Have you been seeing his college bowl game? The Alamo Bowl against BYU? He got messed up because of that, and I'm glad we passed up on him.
Yeah, oh my gosh. And Dylan Gabriel, I think about any other team, he wouldn't even have a job on the roster. The Eagles, I don't see where they would keep him. I don't see where the Giants would keep him. You would still have Winston as a backup. Steelers, you had a young quarterback who looked good in the preseason opener. I don't see him having a room there. I think the only reason Hill and Gabriel has a job is because it's the Cleveland Browns and they don't know what they got at quarterback for the season.
They've been having a quarterback problem. They've been having a wide receiver problem. They had a running back problem. They had a bunch of problems, especially ruining the years of Myles Garrett before he was traded to the Rams.
I mean, ever since Art Modell moved that team to Baltimore, kept the rights to the original Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, Ravens redeemed a new franchise. Jimmy Haslam got the owners purchased the Cleveland Browns to take over when they returned to the league. It's been nothing but comedy gold and a disaster for the city of Cleveland. That's what it's been. You can just get on the Cliff Notes version of this. You start 99 drifts, set the tone perfectly. Donovan McNabb's rated the best prospect on the board. They draft Tim Couch instead. And then from there, it's guys like Courtney, whatever the guy's name was, Courtney Brown, bust offensive tackle. Remember they tried to draft Charlie Fry, who wasn't even on a top list, and he ended up, most people only know him from Madden.
Exactly. A lot of people know him from Madden.
Yeah. You had Brady Quinn, but Derek Anderson ended up starting his rookie season, which was a one-year wonder, but Derek Anderson accomplished more than Brady Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Bust.
Jameis Winston.
Brandon
Weeden. Brandon Weeden.
RG3, when it was clear he wasn't durable or that he needed a team around him to have any shot of succeeding, which the Browns did not have at the time.
Exactly,
Deshaun
because
Kaiser.
RG3, by the way, was ruined thanks to Dan Snyder. Dan Snyder maliciously ruined the power-hungry RG3.
Right, and then even Jake Delhomme. Yeah, Jake Delhomme was solid for the Panthers, but you got to remember, Jake Delhomme played solid. He was never really considered he was never a top 5 quarterback, even with the likes of Steve Smith, Musa Muhammad, an excellent run game, altering between guys like Stephen Davis, Deshaun Foster, Jonathan Stewart, and those guys, D'Angelo Williams. And he was just solid at best. And then they went to the Browns, a worse team situation, and pretty much buried his career. I could go on and on, but that's the Browns for you to present.
And pretty much the Browns ain't going nowhere since that 2020 season with Kevin Stefanski. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching with Nikki Stees and Agent Warrior X. I will tune in the next episode or potentially the next episode because we have the NFL season coming up real soon after the preseason. So thank you all for watching. And until next time, goodbye, my friends. Please like, subscribe, and peace to Nikki Stees and myself.
Have a great night, y'all. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.